Alright guys, we're back in Conifera and I hope you've all had a safe and wonderful entrance into 2023. I can't wait to see what the year brings for the channel, of course. It's gonna be very exciting stuff. We are continuing our industrial expansion theme here in our region of Conifera, but I've got a quick announcement to make first. I made a small change to the perks on my Patreon page, which means that I'll be giving ad-free early access to future videos whenever I can. That applies to all tiers, also the $1 a month tier. So if you're interested in that, head over to my Patreon and take a look. I guess I should say as a disclaimer that often, the video will probably be made public the day after it's made available on Patreon, because they usually don't just lie private for several days at a time before I make them public. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, that's a little addition I'm gonna try out here for 2023. So the episode you're watching right now will have been made early access a day or two ago on my Patreon. Like I said, we're continuing the industrial expansion, and as we touched upon in the most recent episodes, we want to have some extraction of oil throughout the region, and we're gonna start with a pretty large scale oil field today. I guess the inspiration for this has, it's not inspired by one particular oil field anywhere on the planet, but more so just my attempt here is to just create like a really eerie, grungy vibe to it, heavily industrialized. And I also want to try and make it obvious when we get these big picture views during the final cinematics that the petroleum industry wreaks havoc on local environments and the nature that surrounds it. And I've tried to achieve that in this build as well, I hope you guys enjoy it. I think one inspiration for this build was I keep coming back to this, but I've rewatched the first season of True Detective again, and I can highly recommend that show. That particular season, I think, is some of the best television ever produced. But one thing that I really enjoy about that season is that it sits in southern Louisiana, and you've got this southern gothic vibe. And I think one thing that really plays in is, of course, the way that the landscape is used as sort of a character in the series. And I remember these shots of these massive oil refineries throughout Louisiana, and the stark contrast to the natural beauty that surrounds it, but also how obvious it is that these factories, these facilities, they are very much an antithesis to nature. They completely carve up the landscape, it really destroys the local environment. And that's something I want to try and achieve with this build as well. Make it really grungy, make it stick out, really make it a complete eyesore, to be honest. Now it should come to no surprise that I'm no expert in how oil fields are actually built and how they function. So keep that in mind. I will, the primary object for me is just to create a certain aesthetic, and that's kind of what drives this build, more so than what necessarily is the most realistic. Anyways, I think I've kind of emptied what I had to say. My voice is still a little course, as you might be able to hear. I'm having a real hard time getting this flu out of my body, out of my system. So I think I'm just gonna shut up now, and hopefully you'll enjoy the nice tunes I've selected. So the rest of this episode is gonna be a little more vintage, infrastructurist, just lots of good music and time-lapse footage. Hope you guys enjoy it. And yeah, thank you guys so much for 2022. It's been an amazing experience, and I'm really looking forward to 2023. Bye.